Hello, my name is John Slocum, and in this video we're going to talk about our suite of analysis tools in 6-bit. Our analysis tool suite is part of our Enterprise Edition, and what it basically provides is it gives you a way to get a greater understanding of all of the different aspects of your data. It's sort of a pseudo-reporting tool. So you'll be able to bring up different groups of data into a spreadsheet type grid and choose the columns that you're viewing, the sort order of those columns, and apply grouping or filtering to that, and you'll be able to see totals at the bottom. So it's basically a way that's going to give you the ability to really look at your data in a lot of different ways. Our analysis tools, we have a lot of different analysis tools. From the cell items mode, you'll be able to get to the items analysis and the suppliers analysis. From check listings mode, we have a listings analysis tool. And from our ship orders mode, you can get to the orders, sales, and buyers analysis tools. So we're going to go back and we're going to start with the items analysis tool in the cell items mode. So I've gone ahead and selected some items here, and now we're going to open up the items analysis tool. The first thing I want to point out is that for each item we selected, we now have a row in the grid. We could also go ahead and we could look at all of the items. Or we could just look at the items in a particular date range. Let's say we want to look at all of the items that have a date created sometime this year. Okay, notice how I could choose the date that I want to look for and a range of different dates, like I could look for just today, or this quarter, last 7 days, last 60 days. Or I could just choose a custom manual range and enter my own range of dates. Okay, but for now, for our example, we're just going to go back and choose the selected items. Alright, so here we're back to seeing just the items that we had selected. Now, if you look, you'll notice that we have a series of columns that we're showing for our data, and using the scroll bar, we can scroll out and see that there are more columns. For each of these columns, we can do things like sort on the column, change that's sorting ascending or descending, or remove the sort altogether. We can even sort on multiple columns. We can choose to sort on folder, and then if we hold down the Shift key, a secondary sort of title. And then clicking one more time will remove the sorts. We can choose to change the width of the fields or even the order of the fields. And you'll notice that we have this splitter bar so that when we scroll, it doesn't move past the splitter bar. We can change the position of that splitter bar. Or if you don't want to splitter at all, just move it all the way to the left. And then everything will scroll. Okay, I'm going to put it back to where we had it. Widen the title back up. So you can imagine that we might want to see different sets of fields for different purposes. And that's what we're going to show you up here in this drop-down. This drop-down right here shows us the different grid layouts or column sets that we've created. So simplest is all fields. If we choose all fields, it shows us all the fields that are available to view in the items analysis mode. We can also look at an item performance view, which shows just the fields that we might want to see when looking at the performance of an item. We also have views to view item performance by folder or by profile. If we view by folder, we'll notice up here that items is now grouped by folder, and we see the folder group. All of these are in the item repository. We can view the highest grossing items, in which case they're sorted in descending order by their net profit, and a bunch of other things like highest profit, most successful, most often listed, most often sold, most quantity sold. So these are the stock grid layouts that come with 6-bit. If you wanted to change them, you certainly can do that also. Suppose, for instance, you did not want to see the product ID field. You could right-click and uncheck the product ID field, and then go up and choose to save your changes. So it'll ask you, do you want to overwrite the highest grossing default with your changes? And you can say yes. You can also, if you don't want to overwrite the existing ones, you could choose to do a save as and provide your own name. And now you'll see that My New Layout is one of the options. So if we go back to All Fields, and then we could go back to My New Layout. You can also manage your grid layouts from this button right here. So this will bring up and show you a list of all your grid layouts. And if you wanted to create another grid layout that was very similar to highest grossing, but yet you didn't want to lose your highest grossing layout, you could choose to duplicate it and call it, My Highest Grossing. And now you have My Highest Grossing. You could also choose to rename any of your layouts or delete them. So let's go and delete that My New Layout that I'd created earlier. It verifies I want to delete. I say yes, it's now gone. Let's also say that we wanted to put the grid layouts that we most often use near the top. So I could choose to put the item performance by folder up there and my highest profit one up near the top. Now let's talk a little bit about the color coding and the totals. So you see, as we scroll left and right, we have this total row at the bottom. So in this case, our total row shows the number of times listed. Total for the selected items is 7. The number of times sold for the selected items is 3. Quantity sold is 3, and so on. You'll notice over here when it gets to some of the financial records, they're color coded. Incomes are usually in blues and purples, expenses are in reds and oranges, and then net profits are in greens. So we can see that for these, 6 or 7 items, our income totals were $247. Our expenses were $29.56, which leaves us a net of $217.44. Now the totals will always apply to the data that you're looking at in the grid. So if I were to change and view all or view by a certain date range, the totals that you're going to see apply to that date range. This also includes things like filtering. So if I go up here to the filter row and I search on just things that have toddler in the titles, then my totals will now include just the items that have toddler in the title. So you see my totals down here have adjusted properly. Now let's take a look at how totals change as we change the grouping. In order to do that, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to remove my filter, and then we're going to go and select all of the items. Now to group my information, I simply choose a column I want to group by and drag it up into the header. So we can see now items is now grouped by profile, and you can see all of the items for a particular profile are here. I can collapse this to see my other profiles. Continue to collapse until we see that I have 4 different profiles, one with 127 items, one with 1250, 1827, and one with 50. Now what I wanted to show you is that the total for all of the profiles, for example, the income is $330,000, the expenses $41,000, the net $289,000. The totals for all of them are shown at the bottom, but if I expand a single grouping and scroll to the bottom of that, I can see the totals just for the grouping. So I can see that for this particular group, the income was $1,125, expenses, and so on. You can do the same with any of the other groupings. Just simply expand them, scroll to the bottom of the grouping, and you'll see the totals for that group. Now we're going to take a look at something called the master detail relationship, and this is very cool. This is going to let you drill into your data. So for example, let's go up and look at an item here. We have, let's say we take this item here. It's been listed 3 times and it's sold 7 times. So for those 3 listings, we ended up getting 7 sales. So now, I don't know if you've noticed, but we have a plus sign out here on the left. And with the plus sign, this is going to let us drill down into the details of this record. So when I click on the plus, it's going to show me, remember we said it was listed 3 times? This is going to show us those 3 listings. We can see the fact that they're all completed, they were all on eBay, and they were fixed price. Here are the e-commerce IDs. Once again, we can see the profile, the start date, end date, all kinds of information about those listings. And you'll notice that much like the I talked earlier about the splitter bar for the outer level, you also have a splitter bar here at the detail level. Okay, and it goes even further than that. If you wanted to take a particular listing and see the sales for that listing, I can expand the listing, and now we see that for that one listing, 3 sales were generated from it. And here are the sale dates for that, the date payment was received, all of the details for that particular listing. So you can, much like we had totals that came out on a group level, we can see totals inside of our master detail level. So we can see the totals for this particular listing, the extended prices and the income that we get for that, all of the details of the income and expense and net for that one particular listing. Or if we close that up, we can see all of the details for the listing as far as what the listing fees were and fees that apply particularly to a listing. Now, one of the cool things about this is that just like we could group items by profile, if let's say that these listings cross multiple sites or they cross multiple statuses, we could actually also subgroup by, let's say, site. So I could drag the site up here, and now we'll see that items is grouped by profile, listings is grouped by site. So now down with underneath listings, we see that it's grouped by site. If we listed on other sites, we would actually be able to see a grouping for each of the other sites, and they would have their own subtotals also. So you can see that this can be very, very powerful. You can set this up to really drill down and look at your data and see exactly the results that you want to find. So now that you've been able to create all these great grid layouts and look at the data the way you want to see it, what are you going to do with that data? Well, usually people want to do one of a couple things. They want to either print a report of that data, or they want to be able to export it to either Excel or a CSV file. So we have both of those capabilities. So the first thing I'll go up here and show you is that, let's say we wanted to print this report. I'll do a print preview to show you what it's going to look like. So we can see it either in letter, or I can choose landscape mode. We can take a look at what this report might look like. Notice that in this case the report spills over 2 different pages, and you can fix that by just creating your own grid layout that only includes the columns you want and only in the proper width so that everything fits on one page if you want it to all fit on one page. So at this point we could either print, or I'm going to cancel it so I can go back and show you exporting. So in addition to printing hard copies, you can also export the data. And you can export to either Excel or CSV. Now when you export to Excel, it's actually going to create an Excel file. And the advantage of creating Excel versus just a plain CSV is when you create an Excel file, it's going to create the automatic equations and the totaling that is supported in Excel, which is different than just the flat data you would get in a CSV. So I choose the format I want, either Excel or CSV. And then the next thing I'm going to do is choose the details that I want to see. Remember, we talked about the master detail level. So like in the current situation right here, I'm only looking at the items. I'm not looking at the lower details of listings or sales. So I could export just this outer level of information, or I could choose to have items and listings expanded, in which case when they were exported, they would appear, both the items with the listings data underneath would appear in the Excel file, or I could even expand it all the way down and show items, listings, and sales. And also we can do the same with statistics. Statistics is really the totaling that we were seeing down here. So you could either see it total just at the outer item level, or you could see totaling at the item and listing level, or items, listings, and sales level. And then finally choose whether or not you want the column headers to be included at the top of your Excel or CSV file. And then to export the file, all you would do is click OK. Now, one last thing I wanted to show you before closing out the item analysis tool is that in the course of looking at your data, you may have found a certain subset of data that you wanted to act upon. So for example, you might, in looking around, you might have found items that weren't listed that should be listed, and so you want to go back and list those. Well, the way to do that would be to select the items that you want to work with, and then instead of exiting down here in the right corner, you've got this exit to selection, and exit to selection will actually return you to the items mode and will load the items that you have selected, so that you can at that point go ahead and list them or delete them or do whatever action you wanted to perform on them. So you'll see when I exited, now I'm in the view of those items that I had selected. If you'll recall at the beginning of the video, I told you about all the different types of analysis tools we have, and so far we've only looked at the items analysis. Well, I'm not going to go into the great detail with all of the other tools. Basically, all of the functionality you saw in the items analysis tool works in all of the other analysis tools as well. So what I would like to do, though, is I would like to go into a few of the analysis tools and show you some of the cool things that can be done. So let's run over to check listings mode, and let's select all the running listings. We've got all the running listings selected, and take a look at the listings analysis for those listings. Okay, so now that I have all of the running listings loaded here, what can I look at? I can see all fields. I can also group them see them by listing type. So we see that there's 131 auctions and 1,200 fixed price items. We can also look at the items that have the most bids. So of the running items, the currently running items, the ones with the most bids are listed here at the top. We can also look at those with most watchers. We could group them by site or status. And here's an interesting one. If you have multiple people who submit items, then you can actually also group them by submitter, so you can see which of your employees submitted which of the running listings. And finally, you can also view the listings by profile. Let's exit this and run on over to the ship orders mode. And let's take all of our in-process orders. I'm going to select all of those. We're going to go up and look at the orders analysis. So in the orders analysis for these selected orders, I can quickly see the income and expense because I'm looking at the profit and loss report, income, expense, and net. I can also look at things like the highest grossing of all of the items that are currently in process. And we see here the ones that netted us the most. We can also look at group these orders by site, by status, or by payment type. Let's exit and look at orders or the sales analysis now. The difference between a sales analysis and an orders analysis is that an order can contain multiple sales, so the sales analysis will have a separate line for each sale, whereas the orders analysis will have a separate line for each order. And with the sales analysis, since we keep more information at a sale level, we can see more profit and loss information. So if I can go to the profit and loss details, we can actually see a lot of information. We can see how much we were paying on shipping and the cost of goods sold, final value fees, PayPal fees, all kinds of things like that. We can also go and look at all the buyers for the currently in process listings. And when you look at buyers, there's a lot of different ways you can look at your buyers' information. You can do an email list, which is just simply the buyers, just a little bit of information that lets you export an email address list. You could, if you were using another program and you wanted to email buyers, you could select the buyers that you wanted to email and export their email addresses. We also have a mailing list. You can group by most frequent buyers so that we see the most frequent buyers at the top for whatever our selection is. We can look at the biggest spenders, the most recent buyers, oldest buyers, or even group them by state or country. One more thing I'll show you about buyers is that if you've selected a buyer that has multiple orders, you'll notice here it says 2 orders for $248.81. If you wanted to drill down and find out the details of those orders, you can click this new icon for the buyer's analysis, and that'll bring up this buyer with all of the sales for that buyer, and then you can see a total of what that buyer has spent with you over time. This is useful if you want to give them some sort of discounts or some sort of credit based on how much they've spent with you over time. So that's pretty much it for the suite of analysis tools. I think you'll agree that there's tons of things you can do with them, and if you get a little bit creative, you can pretty much create any report you can think of. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you go out and play with the analysis tools and come up with all kinds of cool stuff to do. Thank you, and once again, if you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.